All righty, good morning to you. Welcome in at 6 minutes after the hour now of 9 o'clock. And we really appreciate Tina McSwain for coming in and talking with us with the Charlotte Area Paranormal Society. I would imagine with what you do, the paranormal investigation, you as busy as Santa Claus is in December. That's for sure. Y'all are wide open right now, Tina.
That is true.
I had the pleasure of meeting you because I saw where y'all were hosting a public forum here at the library in Monroe and saw your name and just kind of gave you a call on a whim to see if you'd come in, and you more than gracious to do so, which we really appreciate. And I guess the first question everybody wants to know is how and why did you get into this?
Well, what happened to me was I actually saw an apparition. I have a good friend of mine who lives in the Myers Park area of Charlotte and owned a house that was left to her by her grandmother. House was built in about 1915. So one evening, we were going to go to dinner. Well, she wasn't quite ready, so she told me to come in, make myself at home, have a seat on the couch, watch the 6 o'clock news. So I did. She jumped in the shower. About 5-6 minutes had passed, and all of a sudden, I noticed movement out of the back of the house.
Oh, God.
And I said, that's not her. So I turned to look toward the back of the house. And down a long hallway, all of a sudden I see this little lady come walking out of the back of the house. The lady is petite, looks to be 75, 80 years old, wearing a pink dress, and starts walking into the living room where I am.
Towards you?
Towards me. She even has a little old person gait. You know how they go side to side sometimes?
Look to you, though, it looked like a regular person.
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't see through her or anything.
No,
not
sir.
like Hollywood.
Look just as solid as all of you did.
I thought it might be another guest at the house. Maybe.
I thought could be, or someone that was there that I didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
But she continued walking up toward me. I'm sitting on the couch, and she looked at me. She smiled. I could see her teeth. And then she waved her hand, almost like a, hello, how are you doing? Just straight across her body. And I'm looking at her. And then she turned around, went about half the distance back that she had come from, and then poof, disappeared. Well, I want you to know. The first thing that happened to me was my knees got weak, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I got a little bit sick on my stomach, like an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So, the first thing was logic kicked in. I'm like, all right, let me run around the house. Like I said, this is my best friend's house. I know every nook and cranny of it. So I run into all the houses, bathrooms, closets, and nobody. I know she didn't come in the front door because I'm seated beside it. I know she didn't come in the back door because I can see it from my vantage point. So at this point, I knew it was not my friend, but let me just see where she is. So I go knock on the bathroom door and I don't get an answer. So I fling the door open and call her name. And she peeks out of the shower curtain, shampoo running down her face. And she's like, what's the matter with you? And I'm like, I just, and I'm babbling. I just saw something in I don't know. Yeah. And she's like, whoa, wait a minute. She said, did you see a little lady in a pink dress?
Oh, gosh.
I was like, yes, that's exactly what I saw. And she goes, oh, that's just my grandmother. From time to time, she bebops through to check on me. I'm like, well, you could have told somebody you lived in a haunted house. And that was my first experience.
To that point, did you believe before then? Or are we open to it, or just like they ain't real, or what?
I was open to it based on my mother used to do a lot of, I guess you would call them metaphysical type parties and that kind of thing. She would read tarot cards or play with the psychic pendulum. And it was in the family, she was, she could see dead people. So.
Yeah. My family's got some of that, some of that going on too. It was always, though, like someone nice from the past, like this lady, they were just checking in.
Exactly.
But you hear other stories about, violence and door slamming, and it seems like an angry spirit. So, why would that be?
Well,
and I guess those are what you call a poltergeist?
Well, a poltergeist is German for noisy ghost.
Okay.
And it may not be a ghost at all. It may have something to do with just some sort of kinetic energy that is emitted by usually young females, about the time they're transitioning from young girls to womanhood. and they've got all this angst going on inside them. And it may be something that they're physically doing with some sort of transference of kinetic energy, and it makes things, bang and move.
Really?
So that's hence the name poltergeist or noisy ghost. So
Interesting. Okay, so you had that experience. How did that lead to you to start the Paranormal Society in Charlotte?
well, once I initially got over the shock of what had happened to me, I thought, that was pretty cool. For those couple of seconds,
Yeah.
I saw her. She saw me. We communicated. So as I thought about that, I started to do research. I mean, we were talking, this is 1989, 1990. There
Okay.
were not the ghost shows that there are on TV now.
Okay. Yeah.
So the research I did basically was as much reading as I could get a hold of on the subject. I interviewed the metaphysical people in the area. Charlotte had a huge metaphysical and psychic community at the time, and interviewed several of those. And then from there went to different religions to see what their thought process was about the afterlife. So just did research, reading, and then joined several ghost groups, over the years.
Okay. How do you feel about those cable shows?
They have done a good thing in bringing this topic more into the mainstream, so that if somebody says, well, I think I'm seeing something, or my house is haunted, you're not looked at, so strangely.
Well, but you've told Shane, whenever you do one of these type of shows and give out your phone number and such, you'll get calls from people like, I haven't told anybody this. They feel like they can talk to you.
Right.
Because you're not going to think they're crazy.
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
They never tell their Sunday school class
Right.
for fear how that might be perceived, but
Exactly.
they'll talk to you about it.
That's true.
All right, so let's talk about some of the stuff that you've seen.
Oh, I have seen, quite a bit. Well, like I said, saw the little old lady.
Yeah.
I have seen other spirits from time to time. One of the probably more striking images that I've been left with over these last 20 years that I've been doing this is we had gone to Waverly Hills Sanatorium up in Louisville,
Just
Kentucky.
sounds
Hey,
creepy.
they did a show on that. I saw that on the Ghost Hunter show or something.
They sure did.
That place was creepy.
It is creepy. We've gone to a lot of places like that. But one of the strangest things that I ever saw there was we had, stayed the night just like the show people do. And we had...
You say we, know who you're talking about.
we is my team.
Okay.
My team at the Charlotte Area Paranormal Society.
Okay. How many typically go out?
There were 11 of us on
Oh,
this
my.
particular...
Yeah, that's a big place, though. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it's huge.
Okay.
And there was 11 of us on this particular trip that we had gone up to Louisville. And we had split into about 3 or 4 different groups all over the building. Like Shane says, it is a huge building. It's 5 stories tall.
Vacant.
Oh, yeah.
Looks kind of like, shaped like a bat wing and sitting on top of...
Of course it is.
Yes. Sitting on top of a hill. And it was an old tuberculosis hospital. They thought once upon a time that they shaped it as a bat wing to try and catch air coming up the hill to help the tuberculosis patients breathe.
Okay.
Well, it went through its tuberculosis hospital stage. Then it was a old folks home. Then it was abandoned for years. And then it was purchased by a couple who, wanted to try and start to restore it, and also would actually let folks like us, as well as the Ghost Hunter show, come in. Well, we were there one night, and I had 4 team members, all ladies, on the 4th floor. And they were investigating the 4th floor. I and several other of my teammates, we were down in what they call the death tunnel.
Oh, jeez.
Now, this death
It's
tunnel...
exactly what it sounds like.
It is. It's about 400 feet long, goes from the actual facility down a hill to a train track. And what they did was they would put the bodies on a casket, put them on a cart, and then they would roll this cart down the hill so that the patients in the hospital wouldn't really see as much death that was really occurring. So we were in this tunnel. Well, while in the tunnel, we actually heard one of these carts, which was not there,
Oh, crap.
come down, the hill and smack into the cart stop at the bottom, which was quite the experience. It's dark, it's totally encased in concrete, and it's 400 feet long. So, that's longer than a football field. So that's quite a space. So we get a call. I get a call on the radio that these ladies are on the 4th floor, and some big black blob is chasing them around the 4th floor and preventing them from getting off the 4th floor. So they're literally in tears and want the rest of us to
So people on your
save them.
team do freak out once in a while.
Yes, from time to time.
Okay.
From time to time.
That's nice to know.
So we sent, I had the closest team was on the 5th floor, sent the team on the 5th floor to aid the team on the 4th floor. Then myself and my teammates are trying to we are as far away as we possibly can be. Because we've got to come up these 400 feet, go to the middle of the building, find a staircase, run the staircase up, get to the 4th floor.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some younger guys, and they're, bounding the stairs at 2 and 3 at a time to get to these ladies to help them out, and I'm bringing up the rear. So get to the 2nd floor landing, and I look up, and there are these two, what we call shadow people, standing on the landing looking at me. One's taller, one's shorter. Shadow people are exactly what they sound like. They are just shadows, just devoid of light, almost so black, they're almost liquid black. And they just stand and look at me. So I grab my camera to try and get the evidence, pull the camera up to my face to take the picture, but what? They've disappeared. So I continue my trek because my goal is to get to the 4th floor to aid my.
You got to run past them.
Exactly. And, so they were gone, so not a problem.
Yeah.
I get to the 3rd floor landing. Well, let me back up a second. There is a security team, that stays there all night and watches over you.
Okay.
The security team had told us that there was a phenomenon at Waverly that is really not experienced any otherwhere in the country that they knew of. And they called it a doppelganger. And I was like, okay, doppelganger, another German word, almost like body double. Okay. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I've never heard that. So I get to the 3rd floor and I look, and there is one of my teammates, Cameron. And I look and I'm like, Cameron, in my mind, what are you doing here on the 3rd floor? He was one of the teammates on the 5th floor that I sent dispatch to help the ladies. Mm-hmm. So I started to say to him, Cameron, what are you doing? My sentence was going to be on the 3rd floor. Cameron's standing there in the door jamb. He's got he's got a flashlight. He's got, a vest on. He's wearing equipment. And as soon as I got about halfway through that sentence, he disappeared. So I was like, wow, this doppelganger thing.
All this happened the same night?
Yeah, it all happened in the same night.
It sounds like within about 5 minutes, all this stuff has happened.
It was just crazy. There was a storm at the time, and we think that, electrical storms, the electricity in the air, maybe give the spirits a little bit more energy to manifest.
All right, so you ran past where he was.
Got up to the 4th floor, and, I said there was 11, so there's 10 people already there. I bring up the rear, and I get to where they're standing, and 11 people, 10 people try to tell me exactly at the same time what has happened. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. So come to find out, yes, the 4 ladies were, on the 4th floor. Their equipment was going crazy. We have what we call EMF detectors.
I was going to ask you about equipment.
And these are electromagnetic field detectors.
Okay.
Some of them, if you've seen the TV shows, they're called K2s or mel meters. And they actually read the electromagnetic field strength. We can see, up, down, stationary. The mel meter will also read temperature. So their meters were going off. Lights were flashing, which is indicative of, some sort of
something being there.
Energy
Some
presence.
energy,
Exactly.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So they were a little bit freaked out, and what had happened, they were walking down the corridor, and they saw a black blob thing start to come out of the ceiling. Well, they thought it was like a rat or a snake or something. So it fell down on the ground in front of them, and then proceeded to rise up and was a black blob looking thing and proceeded to come at them. So obviously they run. and try to get off the fourth floor, and that's when they had to call for help. So
it was blocking the stairs, or wouldn't let them off.
Blocking the stairs, wouldn't let them off, and
how close did it get to them?
It was according to them, 6-8 feet away.
Oh,
and,
my! Did it make any sound or?
No sound. Just tweaked their equipment. They tried to use the camera that they had to capture some of it before it got a little bit threatening, but no, more or less the camera is shaking as they're running away.
Let me ask you about pictures. We hear, chances are you're not going to get a picture of the ghost, but we hear about these orbs, these little white specks of light or whatever. Explain that.
Orbs really can be so many other things.
Yeah, I've always thought that too. It's like it's hard to
light playing tricks or the flash off the window.
The flash, off of a reflective surface, not necessarily a window, but even walls can be reflective. Or primarily dust. Someone's walking around on carpet or I had a lady the other day call me and said that her grandson was in a picture and it was at a party and there were these orbs everywhere. And I'm like, well, ma'am, you've got, 10 little kids running around in a home, jumping on furniture. They're creating dust. You took a picture with a flash and there's all these orbs in the picture.
Yeah.
And it can not only dust, but bugs, pollen.
Yeah.
Your hair can get in the way of a shot.
Let me ask you your thoughts on that. We have a listener that called. They had lost their 10-year-old daughter that had been sick for a while and she passed away. And when they got home, I believe from the hospital, every picture in the house that had her in it was on the floor, and the other pictures were not. And they said, some strange things happened for about a month after that.
Well, he said that there was a big collage photograph in her room that was secured to the wall. It was down, and he said for a solid month, every time we turned the television on, there'd be a pink mist over the TV. And he said, that was
her favorite color.
It made him a believer. I mean, he's like, but we in our mind were thinking, okay, well, why throw the pictures off? That sounds more like a out of anger or violence thing than.
Well, no, because it's the only way that she could have made her presence known.
She was 10 years old.
And that was a way that she tried to give them a message that, she was okay on the other side.
Do these spirits, for lack of a better word, do they tend to be when they show themselves, or they tend to be the same age of when they passed? They don't age beyond that, or
they actually can appear any way they want to. I lost an aunt who was 92, and she appeared to me at work. My coworker saw her as well, and to us, she looked more in her 70s because maybe that was her favorite age.
I knew a woman that saw her husband who had passed away. He was a double amputee, but yet he had both his legs when she saw him.
Now, see, that message I get because your husband's a double amputee. You see him and I'm okay. I got my, as far as the investigations and going somewhere like Waverly Hills, I know that night y'all had a lot of personal experiences, but as far as over 20 years of doing it, what you would consider proof. Like if somebody came to you and said, listen, I don't believe in ghosts at all. I don't believe in anything paranormal. Can you change my mind? What kind of evidence have you caught over 20 years?
My favorite evidence really is the EVP, which stands for electronic voice.
Now that's
phenomenon.
creepy. I hear those and I'm like, okay, how do you do that? When you listen, they're talking to whatever's there. They're recording as they talk, and there's nothing. I mean, you hear there's nothing being said.
You hear it on playback.
But then when you go back and play it, you hear "get out," or you hear "I'm here," or "yes," or did you get murdered? Yes, that kind of stuff. I don't like that.
Are these people trapped here?
Some of them could be trapped. Some of them could be lost or confused. And believe it or not, some may not know that they're dead. They just continue on.
I have heard that if someone that maybe dies violently
or suddenly,
could be. I mean, you may not know you're dead, and you continue on with whatever you were doing in life. That could be one of the reasons that you get, drawers opening or cabinets opening in a home because, the lady that lived there before you passed and never knew that she passed. So she's still going about her daily routine of, preparing supper.
You got to slide over there, Reed, if you got a question. You can share a mic with her.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. This is a question. You often hear about two types of ghost stories. You either hear, this is when you see an actual spirit or ghost. A lot of times people hear noises or lights or cabinet doors open, closing. But when you actually hear stories about people when they see an entity, it's either they see a person or a shadow figure and they're just there silently and they're not going to say anything, and they say something and they might disappear. The other stories you hear are like a violent entity that is, it's like you said, chasing them or harassing them.
Trying to hurt them.
Do any of them talk? Can you have a rational conversation? I mean, if you see somebody and they, like that old woman that you saw, can she not speak? Is that, I mean, I'm sure you might not, I'm sure you don't have all the answers, but the story always goes, they say something or this, and they always disappear at the most opportune time. It's like they're always the wrong time. They just disappear. It's like, wait, we just started. You just got
they
here.
don't tend to speak, but they'll smile, or your case, wave. Are they not capable?
I think it has to do with the amount of energy that's available to them. Now, I have heard, quick, for instance, I was at Rosedale Plantation, which is over in Charlotte, house built in 1815. I've had several experiences at that plantation home, and we were in what we call the little girls' room one night. We had two cameras running. One was stationary. One was being run by one of my team members. I had an audio recorder. She had an audio recorder. So we had 4 pieces of electronic equipment in there. I asked the question to these little girls. I was speaking to little girls, and I said to them that it would be considered rude not to answer an adult that had asked a question. I was trying to be more stern, almost like a schoolmarm would have been, in the 1800s.
Yeah.
So when I asked the question, I actually heard giggling. These little girls giggled at me. Not only did I hear it, but all 4 pieces of, recording devices picked it up.
At that point, I would have needed the little boys' room.
Yes.
Because I'd have probably...
Do you have a website?
I do.
Any of this stuff or pictures or audio, anything like that up on your website?
There is.
Interesting.
There is.
Before we go, I do have this one final question. How do you know the difference between a spirit entity that...
How do you know if they're good or bad?
How do you know they're good or bad? And how do you know they're not good? Well, do you ever fear they're going to hurt you? Like, you're in that haunted house or in this sanatorium or whatnot. What can these entities do to you? I mean, is there something you fear while you're out there, or you know that they're not going to hurt you, so you don't fear, you're just trying to understand? A lot of people are scared because they don't understand, but it seems you understand. So what are you afraid of?
Nothing.
I would imagine, I've heard a lot of people say this, the biggest, actual biggest danger you guys run into is somebody getting hurt while you're doing this, like falling down a flight of stairs or tripping and falling. I mean, that's more of a danger. I've watched a bunch of the shows. I've always been intrigued by them, and almost everything I always hear is there's nothing wrong with telling them, I don't mean you any harm. When I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to harass you. I just like to know if you're here.
Right.
A lot of it. And depending on who you're talking to, that makes sense to me. If you're in a little girl's room, sometimes you got to communicate with them as a little. I remember watching one time where they used a ball. Let's see, here, roll this ball, and here come the ball back rolling. I'm like, I'm out.
We've used objects like that, but I mean, we're to answer your question, we are more afraid of living people than dead people.
All right. So what about the ones? There's houses. There's one that we've talked about that seems to be a spirit there that doesn't want you there.
Right.
There's a guy who got pushed off a porch and things like that. Can they, I mean, I've just always heard they can rattle chains and slam doors.
Can.
Yeah. But not physically attack you.
They can do that too.
That's what we heard in this particular case.
I have been slung down myself.
Really?
Yeah. I've had I've had my hair pulled, I've had my clothing pulled, I've had my arms and legs grabbed, but the worst thing that ever happened to me is I was trying to speak to a spirit one night. I felt a huge hand just grab me on the shoulder, and the next thing I know, boom, I'm down on the ground.
Pushed you down.
Pushed me down.
Is there any danger of is there any danger at all of people who might want to do this if they're interested, or maybe they wanted to have you out, and we're going to let you give your number and things in just a minute, but is there any danger of a person on going on one of these investigations? Should they be afraid of bringing any of this back home with them? Because that's one of the things I always hear people, I'd love to go on one of those investigations, but I'm scared to death whatever it is coming home with me. But most of the time, it seems to be a place is more haunted. It always seems to have to do with the place, not the... So is that something people should be worried about? It's like, if I go with you to this rose field plantation, is that booger coming home with me?
Probably not, because they like to stay at the Rosedale. But we do a couple of things, hey, you can just tell them when you leave, you got to stay here. You cannot go with me. I mean,
And they listen?
Pretty much.
Has there ever been a time in 20 years of doing this when you were genuinely afraid? I guess what I'm asking you is, what is the most active place you feel you've ever been to?
Tina, you can't say that when you were pushed down and had your hair pulled and leg grabbed, that's scary. That didn't scare you?
No.
Really?
Because it happened a little bit later in my career, if you want to call it that.
If it would have happened night one, it would have been different.
Yeah, night one would have been different.
Lord.
Night, 2023, no.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was, and it turned out to be a misunderstanding. I was speaking to the spirit. I particularly could not see the spirit, but we had a team member who was more sensitive to these things, and she could. And what it was, this was a man who was about 6'9", and he was just a huge physical presence. All he was trying to do was turn me to face him to ask the question.
Oh, God.
But yet he threw me down in the ground. I mean, he's 6'9", I'm 5 feet. So there you have it.
What question did you ask her, Saint? What was the scariest?
What's for you the worst?
When early on in my career, we had gone to an old abandoned graveyard. I was on another team, did not, have my own team at the time. And there was, people were talking about the possibility of a Native American spirit running around in the woods, and the possibility of maybe, there was a Native American burial ground back there, which was kind of scary, you know, at the time. And I hear this, all of a sudden we hear this noise coming out of the back of the woods. We could see for hundreds of feet. There was nothing there, but yet the sound was so loud. I mean, you would have thought that elephants were walking around back there. And then the sound gets closer and closer and closer to where we are. And then it's almost like, he may have picked up a stick or something and started hitting trees. So there was these whacking noises. Well, I thought to myself, if we don't get out of here soon, I can just see this Native American spirit running up over the top of the wall,
I just died.
Running up over the top of the tombstones and coming right at us. And I'm like, you know what? I just am not, up for that this evening. So, we did get the, fight or flight, there, and we decided to flee. So,
One final question from me. Does your fear increase the likelihood of something?
That's a great question.
And does your openness to a situation increase the likelihood of something happening, good or bad? So does your fear enhance whatever's happening? And if you're open to the possibility, does it increase the likelihood of paranormal activity?
On the fear question, there are, negative entities that, are said to sometimes feed
on
off
fear.
that fear. Yeah. Because they do need energy to manifest, whether it be, energy from you, human-wise, or energy from our batteries or our equipment. They do need the energy to try and manifest. And just on the converse side of that, if you are open to these things, then you're probably going to see more. And then also in that vein, children and animals will see spirits, you know. Or
I've heard that
ghosts.
about animals. Anytime my dog has ever cocked his head and looked at the wall, don't do it.
I've got a dog, Hamlet. He's a Chihuahua mix, and for some reason there's a corner in the house, and he will daily walk over to that corner, and his hair will stand up on his neck, and he will just absolutely bark his head off for at that corner. There's nothing in it. It's just, and he's just mad as he can be. And I didn't tell my wife there might be something in that corner.
So you may need me to come over with my equipment and check that corner out.
Tina, have you investigated anything in the Monroe area?
In the Monroe area, not.
Because we got our own little deal going on. I
have heard that you guys have some things. One of the more famous or maybe infamous areas that you have here is the Blakeney House.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now I've never had.
Now, see, we had an experience in there.
Oh,
Archie
okay.
and I. Now we didn't see a ghost or anything, but there was a period of time it was a restaurant.
Right.
The two ladies that run the restaurant, I asked them, was it haunted? And they said, yes. And I said, how do y'all know? And they said, we used to have our big dinner parties upstairs in the top setting. We had a big service set, had the nice china put out. She said, before we got to the bottom of the stairs, we heard just god-awful noise. Went back, all the dishes broken, tables turned over right then and there. So we asked, could we go up and look? And they said, yeah, sure. So we start walking up that flight of stairs, and I look over, there's a big chandelier. I told Archie, I said, that chandelier's swinging. And we looked, and it was moving. And then light bulbs started popping. Two or three. I'm like, I'm going. I didn't go back. I didn't go up. I came back down. And that was the end of my ghost hunting career right there.
I hear you.
Listen, if people want to contact you for any reason, if they need your help or just curious about it, how can they?
Our website is www.charlotteareaparanormal.org.
Okay.
And there is contact information on there. The phone number that we use is 704-236-9678.
All right, very good. And you do a public haunt once a month where you let folks go along with you when you go to investigate. They can get information about joining in on that through the website?
They can. It is a meetup group, and we take our meetup group out usually the last Saturday in the month, unless CAPS ourselves has a conflict. We try to do that so that we can take, the public out on a safe, structured event.
Anything ever happened at a public haunt like that?
Oh yeah,
really.
We were at Brattonsville last month and actually got an EVP. I had
these monthly deals, you're going to places you've been before that there's some activity.
Yeah, and you just have to be at the right place at the right time. We know that we've been before, we've gotten evidence, and there is activity, but there may or may not be the night that we go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we appreciate your time. I know that this month you're wide open. So, folks, I would encourage you that if you are dealing with something like this, I know it's hard to talk to folks about, but Tina's not going to call us back and say, you ain't going to believe who called me and said to her house. That's what you do, and you take it very seriously.
That's right.
If somebody thinks you could help them, you would encourage them to get in contact with you.
I would. Because we're here to help. We're here to help them as well as the spirit if we can.
So in that vein, you can get rid of someone's like, there's a presence here, we got a cold draft or whatever, doors are opening. You can keep that from happening. You can talk this spirit into leaving the house, or
if we try.
Bless the house.
We do. We try. A lot of times it's just stating what you need out, to the spirit. If you really believe you have someone there and we come in, we get some evidence that you do, then we come back and we're like, look, there's a better place for you, talking to the spirit, than this place. This is their home. There's somewhere that you need to go, and it's not here. So we try to mediate between the two.
I guess.
So it's charlotteareaparanormal.org.
Yes,
they
sir.
can check out. And why is it always? It's always the Indian burial ground. That's the worst. You run up on. I'm serious. A Native American.
Well, there's a lot of mysticism and spirituality that the Native Americans themselves, are a long, spiritual people. So might have something to do with it as well.
Maybe.
And it's not just Hollywood. Things tend to be more active at night, you've said, than the daytime?
Well, it just really depends. We tend to go at night because, we have real jobs and, we work Monday through Friday. So Saturday nights, some Friday nights tend to be
midnight
when we can go,
Tina, we really appreciate it. It's very interesting.
I appreciate you guys having me this morning.